Hello everybody and welcome back to yet another Draft Expert YouTube video. I'm sorry it's been so long since the last time we have spoken to each other. It's just been freaking crazy recently, and I'm trying my best to get back to a more consistent level, and I hope this week, by the end of this week, that you get to see my beautiful face once again. The United States has some friendlies coming up this weekend, so we'll do some stuff for that. So make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And with that, let's just go over the housekeeping items first. Make sure to follow the Logan Blackman Show on every single form of social media: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and of course, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can find me on Twitter at Logan_Blackman. Instagram account's Blackman Logan. The show's Instagram account is The Logan Blackman Show. Same with Facebook and YouTube. Make sure you like and follow the Facebook page. And again, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're watching right now, make sure to give the video a thumbs up. But if you're not a trusting individual, that's fine. That's fine. You're allowed to be that. So wait till the very end of the video, and I will remind you at the end to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. But if you didn't enjoy it, obviously, you don't need to leave a thumbs up. Just please don't leave a thumbs down. Just please don't leave a thumbs down for me. Please. Please, I would greatly appreciate that. But also, make sure to check out the podcast and Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And also, most importantly, make sure to check out the blog post on the LoganBlackmanShow.com for Mock Draft 2.0. There will be links to all of that stuff down in the description below. The top link will be the mock draft. And I hope you guys do enjoy the mock draft. This one was hard. I'm not going to lie. This one was one of the harder mock drafts I've had to do, and mostly because I'm an overthinker. I'm a massive overthinker when it comes to this kind of stuff, and I like to tinker, I guess is the best way I could put it. I do it with my March Madness brackets all the frickin' time. But in this time around in this mock draft, this felt like it took a lot longer in between mock drafts to get done than it normally does. Like usually I would say I'm about 2 weeks in between each mock draft, somewhere around there. This time I was damn near a month. Or over a month, I should say. I released Mock Draft 1.0 on February 19th, and I released Mock Draft 2.0 on March 23rd, which ironically is exactly 1 month until the actual NFL draft. So that's kind of funny, but it took me a long-ass time because this year, I think more than usual, I guess I shouldn't say more than usual, it feels like teams are holding their cards very close to their chest. And it feels like every single day, especially post-combine, we've got a new rumor coming about this team is in love with this player, this team's in love with this player, this guy could fall in the draft. Like, we're getting new reports every single day. Like, after the combine, just an example. After the combine got done, the Tennessee Titans are in love with Jeremiah Love. They view him as the top overall prospect in the draft. And you remember last year, when they were like, hey, we're not going to pass on a generational prospect. If you view Jeremiah Love as the top prospect in the draft, it'd be hard to believe that they wouldn't take him at 4. But then a week or so later, we get Adam Schefter coming out and saying he doesn't believe the Tennessee Titans are going to take Jeremiah Love. It's actually going to be the New York Giants that start the run on Jeremiah Love. And then just a couple days ago, it turned into, oh, the Giants aren't going to take Jeremiah Love. It's actually going to be the Washington Commanders that take Jeremiah Love. So it's just a thing that keeps on moving down and down and down, and we don't know what the hell is happening here. I can say this, though. I'm fairly confident if by some reason he slips in the draft, he ain't falling past 9. So we know Jeremiah Love's going to go in the top 10 somewhere. It just doesn't know. We just don't know where that is and what team that's going to be at this point in time. Even though the Chiefs and the Saints made big signings this offseason, Chiefs brought in Kenneth Walker. Then you got the Saints bringing in Travis Etienne. There's just a lot of stuff going on this offseason. But the one thing we do know at this point in time, and I'll address this a little bit more later, because I think you know what I'm going to say when I bring up the first overall pick in the draft, and that's Fernando Mendoza to the Las Vegas Raiders. It's been the pick since he won the Heisman Trophy, since the Big Ten championship game, that he's going to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. I know there were some conversations about maybe Dante Moore from Oregon could be the number 1 overall pick in the draft, but ultimately, Fernando Mendoza was the best quarterback in college football this past season. He's the best prospect in this draft. He's got all the traits that you look for in a potential franchise quarterback. He's 6'5". He's got good size. He's got good arm. He's got a quick release. He's a quick processor. There are going to be some concerns in the kind of offense that they ran at Indiana with a lot of quick hitters. There's not a lot of long-standing reads there. So how will he be able to develop at the next level? Because if a lot of his throws are first reads, how is he going to do when the process breaks down around him? But as we saw throughout last season, is that when he does make a mistake, and I brought this up 1,000 times before, when he does make a mistake, he bounces back quicker than every other quarterback in college football. Like, you look at the game against Iowa, Oregon, Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, Penn State, like all those games, when he threw an interception, he threw 6 on the year, but when he threw an interception in those games in particular, he bounced back with a scoring drive. Like, it might not have been a touchdown if I remember correctly, but every single one of those drives, he bounced back with a touchdown or a scoring drive of some kind. That's what you want from a quarterback at the next level. Being able to wash things. Not being able to not sitting there and dwelling on the turnover, because it doesn't matter how great of a quarterback you are, you're going to throw an interception. Like, even Aaron Rodgers, who has the best touchdown-interception ratio of all time, has thrown interceptions before. So it's all about a matter of washing it and moving on to the next play or moving on to the next drive, and that's exactly what Fernando Mendoza does better than every other quarterback in this draft class and in college football, which is a big reason why he won the Heisman Trophy. It also helps that he led the nation in passing touchdowns this past year with 41. He also won the national championship game. They went undefeated and all that great stuff. Fernando Mendoza is the clear number one pick in the 2026 NFL draft. Moving on to number 2, this one's a little bit more difficult because the Jets could go in a couple different directions. Like, David Bailey's going to get linked here. Sonny Styles from Ohio State. Since the combine, his stock has just kept rising and rising and rising each and every week. But I went with Arvell Reese for this one. Sonny Styles, Ohio State teammate. Natural linebacker, natural off-ball linebacker. But there's a lot of people out there who believe that his ceiling and his best work at the next level could come as an edge rusher. And if you listen to what the New York Jets have done this offseason in regards to what Aaron Glenn is trying to convey on the defensive side of the ball, trading away Jermaine Johnson, the Tennessee Titans, wanting a more stand-up outside linebacker approach in a 3-4 defense rather than his usual 4-down lineman. Like, I listened to Troy Pauline say this a couple months ago, but when Trey Hendrickson was signing, when he was a free agent from the New Orleans Saints, he ended up signing with the Cincinnati Bengals instead of the Jets because Robert Saleh, who was the coach at the time for the Jets, had more stand-up outside linebackers standing up over the tackle rather than Bengals who put their hand in the dirt, which is why I had Ruben Bain going here last time. But if you listen to what the stuff around the New York Jets, it seems they're switching to a different front there. So Arvell Reese, ceiling-wise, is the player that I think the Jets would look at. Because I saw Daniel Jeremiah say this, that everything the Jets are doing this offseason is about getting ready for the next year's draft, the 2027 draft. Because if you look at the current state of the New York Jets, it's not in the best spot it's ever been in recent years, or maybe ever. I mean, Aaron Glenn is on a very short leash this upcoming season. I don't think he's going to have a lot of room to work with. Within this team's, it's not going to be a good team. And I think that Aaron Glenn, I think it's only a matter of time, or it's a matter of when he gets fired rather than if. I mean, as a defensive-minded head coach, who at once upon a time was one of the best defensive coordinators, or considered one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL, had a defense that totaled 0 interceptions this past season. It's going to be very hard for him to convince ownership to have him stay on past this season, which I think is why they ultimately brought in Frank Reich to serve as the offensive coordinator for the team, because he has NFL head coaching experience. Maybe not the greatest head coach of all time, but he has an experience to be a bridge guy for the guy that they ultimately hired next year. And I could be very wrong. I could be wrong. Maybe Aaron Glenn figures it out and this Jets roster figures it out. Maybe Arvell Reese, the guy that really turns things around and starts getting after the quarterback and making plays and start throwing off their clock so they start throwing a shit ton of interceptions. I don't know. But regardless, Arvell Reese is a very, very good overall player. It's just a matter of what his position is at the next level. Is he an off-the-ball linebacker? Is he an edge rusher? Because there's going to be some people that go, you don't draft off-the-ball linebackers at second overall. You draft edge rushers there, which is one of the most important positions in all of football, and we're talking about positional value in the draft. It's up there with left tackle and quarterback in regards to positions you draft higher than every other position in the draft. That's the hope, anyways, that he develops into that. His skills and pass rushing sets looks like he can be that, and you're just hoping and praying that he becomes someone like a Micah Parsons, who came into the league as a linebacker and has developed into one of the best edge rushers in football. But Arvell Reese goes in at number 2. Number 3, the Washington Commanders. I had them striking a trade with the Arizona Cardinals, and this was before all the stuff came out about, the Titans don't want him, the Giants don't want him, it's probably going to be the Commanders. So in my brain, it was like, oh, the Commanders, they're going to want to add some help around Jaden Daniels. Yes, this is a team that prioritizes defense, the defense that came dead last in the league last year in total defense. Dan Quinn, being a defensive-minded head coach, he's going to want to fix that. And they've gone out in free agency and have addressed that tenfold. They've signed Clavon Chice in this offseason. They signed Leo Chenal, Nick Cross, Charles Omenihu, Odafe Owe, and Tim Settle in free agency. I just think it's a matter of time before they actually address the opposite side of the ball, with Jaden Daniels coming off an elbow injury that had him play 12 games, 10 games, something like that last year. I don't remember the exact number. But after what happened his rookie year, I think you try to do your best to get back to that and get the best out of Jaden Daniels is giving him an elite running back like Jeremiah Love. A backfield with Jeremiah Love and Jaden Daniels would be freaking ridiculous. If Jeremiah Love's as good as what we think he is and what we saw at Notre Dame, it's hard to believe that he won't be one of the best running backs in the NFL right from the jump. And again, running the RPO with those two in the backfield would be absolutely lethal. I know there's going to be some people that go out there like you don't draft running backs this high, let alone trade up from 7 to 3 to get this guy. But I think Jeremiah Love is just that special of a player. And I think the Titans and Giants, I do think there's some things around there that are like, hey, we want a team to trade up to get him rather than we want him ourselves because we want the players that we really want to fall to us. And the Cardinals could take him. Like you look at the Arizona Cardinals at 3. If they stay at 3, Sonny Styles, David Bailey, Ruben Bain, these are players that could potentially go to the Cardinals at number 3, which are 3 players that I could see the Titans and Giants looking at as players that they want for their roster. As defensive-minded head coach John Harbaugh and Robert Saleh coming in there. They're going to want to improve their defensive side of the ball. And if they need running backs, the Titans have Tony Pollard. He's got back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, but he's not necessarily a special player in the backfield. And the Giants obviously got Cam Scatterbo, who's coming off a broken leg. And then you got Tyrone Tracy, who I believe just signed an extension, if I remember correctly. I could have seen that wrong. But regardless, like, if you're looking at, there's going to be a lot of people like, I thought it was really funny, though. I did think this was kind of funny. That Titans fans are like, yeah, well, yes, let's get Jeremiah Love in there. And Giants fans are like, no, what? You can't do this to the New York Giants. No, the Giants fans' life is a living hell, a constant misery, yada, yada, yada. It's like you're both getting Jeremiah Love. Why is one fan base happy and the other one's not? Neither one of you are really sport for Troy. Like, I like Cam Scatterbo. He just came out and said CT's fake the other day. Like, he's a character. That's what you like to have at the running back position. He's a big character, big goofy guy. Him and Jackson Dart got this bromance going on right now. We love to see that. But come on. Jeremiah Love is a difference maker in the backfield. So if he does fall to that point, it wouldn't shock me if the Giants wound up taking him. It wouldn't. And it wouldn't shock me if the Titans took him either. But I do think, again, it's ultimately a ploy to try and get a team to trade up with the Cardinals so they can get the guys that they really want. That's what my brain's telling me. I think the Commanders, again, are a team that could use someone like Jeremiah Love. Yes, they brought in Rachaad White this offseason at running back, who's going to be a very good third down back. But apart from that, I don't think Rachaad White is a guy that you look at and go, oh, they made a running back signing. Oh, now they're not going to make a move for a running back this offseason. Like we brought up the Chiefs and the Saints, getting Etienne and Kenneth Walker in this offseason. Like looking at moves like that, those are moves where I would look at and go, okay, you're probably not making a move for a running back this early on in the draft. Rachaad White's not keeping you from doing that. Chris Rodriguez is not keeping you from doing that. Like, there's no move that the Commanders have made that goes, oh, yes, they're going to stay off of running back. If you can add a dynamic player like Jeremiah Love, who's more than just a running back, can make plays in the pass game and the run game, you got to do it. I do think there's a reality where, like, Carnell Tate would be an option at number 7. I do think that Sonny Styles could be an option here as well. And David Bailey and all these guys. But Jeremiah Love would be a real difference maker to an offense that does not have any outside of Jaden Daniels. Yes, I know Terry McLaurin's there. Terry McLaurin's great. But Terry McLaurin battled a shit ton of injuries last year. Get Jaden Daniels some more weapons on that side of the ball and keep improving the defense with the picks you have in the draft. But Jeremiah Love, you could get him at 7. But right now, in this mock draft, I have them trading up to number 3 with the Arizona Cardinals. Number 4, the Titans, David Bailey. I think he's the guy the Titans want. Robert Saleh is anal about getting edge rushers on his team. They just traded for Jermaine Johnson, who was a first-round draft pick under Robert Saleh. Now you bring in David Bailey, who is, again, the most natural pass rusher in this draft class, especially coming off with stand-up outside linebacker position, standing up over the tackle. I think that him and Jermaine Johnson would be a great edge rushing duo. And yes, you could go after a running back. You could realistically go after a running back here or a receiver here and then get an edge rusher at your first pick in the second round. You could do that. But if you're Robert Saleh, who has prioritized edge rushers and getting edge rushers on the team, then you move for someone like David Bailey if he's available there. Now, the only way I see them taking Jeremiah Love in my brain right now, as things stand right now, is if David Bailey's not there. So if Jeremiah Love, let's say hypothetically the Cardinals don't trade back with the Commanders and Jeremiah Love's still available, I think the Titans would still take David Bailey there. I think that's the guy they want. And I think that's, again, why we're seeing all this stuff about Jeremiah Love and the Tennessee Titans, all these teams. But that's no disrespect to Jeremiah Love. I just think that David Bailey, 14.5 sacks this past year, 20.1 pressure win rate this past season at Texas Tech, 4.5 in the 40-yard dash, like a very good athlete. There's some question about his lateral movement, but overall, I do think David Bailey would be the perfect fit for what Robert Saleh wants to do. And him and, Jermaine Johnson would be a very fun edge rushing duo there. And the New York Giants at 5, I have Sonny Styles. Caleb Downs was an option here. We obviously talk about Jeremiah Love a lot. Carnell Tate, I think, is another option here. There's going to be talks about some right tackles here as well. But Sonny Styles is a guy whose stock's been shooting up like a freaking rocket ever since the Combine. One of the best performers at the Combine in Combine history. That's not even me being like, I'm not even exaggerating here. Sonny Styles really put on one of the best Combine performance. Like, you compare him to some of the wide receivers and tight ends that have taken place at the Combine. Like, Sonny Styles, out of all the linebackers, led him in 40 times, broad jumps, vertical. Registered a 43.5-inch vertical. 43.5-inch vertical. That's not fair. That's not fair. Why are you able to do that? How are you blessed to be able to do that? And I don't remember what my vertical is, but I can promise you this. It ain't 43.5, and it definitely ain't no 40-inch either. Oh, that's not fair. I'm not going to sit here and go like it's a 29 or something. I don't know what it is. I haven't tested it in a while. It's been freaking, good Lord, it's been 8 years since since I was a freshman in college. That's disgusting. What? Regardless. Now, the New York Giants, they did go out and sign Tremaine Edmonds this offseason. Linebacker, former first-round draft pick by the Bills, was just cut by the Bears this offseason. They signed him to a 3-year contract this offseason. I think Tremaine Edmonds is a good player. But again, it's one of those situations where I don't feel like he's the player where you look at and go, oh, we're completely not drafting Sonny Styles at this point in time. Sonny Styles is off the draft board. I don't think that's the case. I do think it improves their chances at getting Caleb Downs, but if you're looking at a top 5 pick, and you're looking at the traits that these players have, and I know Caleb Downs' game is so much more than just physical traits, because Caleb Downs really is not this traitsy guy. He's not the biggest, fastest dude in the world, but he just makes plays. He's a leader on the defense that you need. But I feel like Sonny Styles, and given the linebackers that John Harbaugh has worked with in the past, I think adding a guy like that next to Tremaine Edmonds would be awesome. They cut Okereke earlier this offseason as well to open up more holes there. But yeah, 6'5", 244 pounds, doing what he did at the Combine. C.J. Mosley, Ray Lewis have been a part of John Harbaugh's defenses. Why not just get someone like Styles here? Sonny Styles, I think, will be a perfect addition into the middle of the defense for the New York Giants. And the number 6, this is where we get a little crazy. And I promise I'm not going to go off on some Dan Orlovsky-style rant here about how I feel like this guy's the best quarterback in the draft class. I'm not going to go out there and say that. Ty Simpson at 6. And before you all freak out at me about this is not like, oh my God, I think Ty Simpson is a top 10 pick in the draft, so I think he should go to the Cleveland Browns at 6. There was once upon a time, yeah, I did feel like Ty Simpson was a number one overall pick contender throughout the season. There were times this season where I thought Ty Simpson was the best quarterback in the draft class. So there's our points where Dan Orlovsky was like, oh yes, Ty Simpson's the best quarterback in the draft. I think at once upon a time he was, but I don't think that's the case right now. I brought up all the stuff that we said about Fernando Mendoza earlier: size, arm talent, quick release, quick processor, big moments that he's had throughout the course of the season, stepping up after making a mistake, like being able to wash mistakes away and move on easily. Like, I think that's what separates Fernando Mendoza at this point in time. And Ty Simpson, I think, is good. I think he's a very good quarterback. I think he's the clear number 2 quarterback in this draft class. I think he makes a lot of NFL-level throws. I think he's great when throwing across the middle of the field. I think he's great at being aggressive in the passing. And yes, his deep ball down the sidelines was inconsistent at best this past season, and I think as the season progressed, the injuries started piling up on him, and then film got more on him, so defense were able to key in on some of his tendencies there, and you look at the SEC Championship game, you look at the game against Indiana in the Rose Bowl, like, those games were not great. He threw 2 interceptions against Eastern Illinois, and again, I've talked about that before, where we can kind of sit back and go, and he didn't have any passing touchdowns, but he had a couple throws that set up touchdowns like the very next play, rushing touchdowns the very next play. The one interception that he threw at the end of the first half was just a Hail Mary towards the end zone, so I don't really care about that one. First one, he just completely missed the guy. Didn't see him. Linebacker just popped up in his face right when he threw the ball. But Simpson at 6 is, again, not because I've got some agenda for Ty Simpson. I think this is all going to be around quarterback is a position where people reach on, I guess you could say. Because quarterback is the most important position in all of sports. If you don't have a franchise quarterback, you don't have anything. And I know the Cleveland Browns, there's going to be fans out there that are like, oh, they have Shedeur Sanders. And I know he made a Pro Bowl last year. I know he's a Pro Bowl quarterback now. But they didn't want to. I know it's a different head coach. I know Kevin Stefanski's not there. It's Todd Monken's team now. But they didn't want to draft Shedeur Sanders last year. They drafted him basically because he was available. Best player available type approach. You drafted Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round, which at that point in time was seen as a reach anyways. Like, there's no point in time, and you can be the biggest Dylan Gabriel supporter, you can be the biggest Shedeur Sanders hater, but at no point in time, as a prospect, did you ever look at the two and go, oh yes, Dylan Gabriel is better than Shedeur Sanders? No one ever thought that. And if you did, I don't know what to tell you. You're just trying to be different at that point because they weren't close as prospects. If you want to go like college quarterbacks, that's completely different. Because Tim Tebow is a better college quarterback than every other quarterback we're going to mention today, but yet he sucked ass in the pros, one of the worst pro quarterbacks of all time. Being a better prospect is different than being a better college quarterback. And Shedeur Sanders, though yes, is a Pro Bowl quarterback, yes, had moments last year. Did he do enough for Todd Monken and the new regime that's coming in as the head coach and offensive staff and everything? Did he do enough to convince them that he should be the starter going into this season? And they also got Deshaun Watson, who could be coming back. I don't know what the situation is revolving around Deshaun Watson, but you look at what the Browns are and what they need, and look at the connection between Todd Monken and Ty Simpson's dad. I could see a reality where this happens, and it's not, again, not just because of the connections. It's also because of you don't know if you can get him at 24. That's the big talk, is that the Browns are going to try or could potentially try to get him at 24 or trade up from 24. But you look at the teams like that are in front of him. The Jets at 16. The Rams at 13 could be a potential landing spot there. I've seen some people talk about the Vikings, which I think is a very funny one. But if you really think about it, Kevin O'Connell likes to throw the ball across the middle of the field. Ty Simpson does that better at this point, right now, than J.J. McCarthy does, because they took out the middle of the field throws for McCarthy this past season. But you also look at the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21. Like, there's teams in front of the Browns, and the Cardinals could jump back into the first round and take him. Like, there's people in front of the Browns that could potentially jump the Browns that could take Ty Simpson. Like, the New York Giants took Daniel Jones 6th overall. Did they need to take him at 6th overall? No, they didn't need to take him at 6th overall. But if you pass on the guy you think is your guy and risk him getting taken by someone else, that's not a smart move. And if Ty Simpson winds up being a franchise quarterback, no one will ever talk about, oh, Ty Simpson was a reach at 6. Now, if he stinks it up at the next level, then yeah, obviously people will talk about why did you take him at 6 overall? Like we do with the Giants with Daniel Jones. Like we do with the Bears with Mitchell Trubisky at 2nd overall. Like, we see these all the time where you look at it and go, why did you do that there? But if he ends up working out, then you don't think about that. Then you've got your franchise guy for the next however many years. And I think Ty Simpson is a good quarterback. He's a really good quarterback. There's going to be a lot of people out there, and rightfully so, that are hesitant on him because of the 15 starts. There's going to be a lot of hesitancy around him. And I think in Cleveland, it's not an ideal spot to be in because you don't know what Deshaun Watson's long-term future is with the team or Deshaun Watson's immediate future with the team. You don't know what Shedeur Sanders is with the team. Like, we don't know that kind of stuff. You'd want him to go to a team where he could sit and properly develop, like a Cardinals team with Jacoby Brissett and who else did they just sign? Gardner Minshew already in place. Ideally, with LaFleur in as the head coach, that would be a great spot for him to land in. But if Todd Monken really likes Ty Simpson and really wants his quote-unquote guy, then it wouldn't shock me if the Browns took Ty Simpson at 6. Again, people panic when they don't have a franchise quarterback. And you could see this as a reach. Hell, I think this is a reach. I personally would not take Ty Simpson at 6, given what we saw the back half of the season and the fact that he only has 15 starts. That's not a very good... that doesn't really have a very good, track record of working out at the next level with that little of starts. And people compare him to Mac Jones a lot. Mac Jones had 17 starts throughout his time at Alabama. And I would take Ty Simpson over Mac Jones, just based off what I saw as regards to a pro prospect, I would take Ty Simpson over Mac Jones. And that's not exactly, again, why I'm going, if Mac Jones was taken 15th, then Ty Simpson, I think, is better. He should go before where Mac Jones went. That's not how that works. And I hate when people do that because every draft is different. Every single draft is different. Like, I see people all the time talking like, Dash Genti went 6th overall. Man, Jeremiah Love should not go before 6th. Well, that's not, you can't do anything about that. Needs are different each and every year. Positional value is different each and every year. It just changes. So you can't compare directly draft to draft and go like, oh, well, this guy went here, so this guy, that's different. It's a completely different time. So you can't compare. But I do think this has got a chance of happening. I'm not sitting here and stamping my claim that it's going to happen, and I think it should happen, but I think it can. And I think it's a lot more realistic than what people out there might want to admit that it is. And again, this is not something like I think Ty Simpson's the best quarterback in the draft class. And it's not me going like all Dan Orlovsky or Mike Tannenbaum talking about like, 10 to 15 teams all think the exact same thing as me, which, again, I have a very hard time. I have a very hard time believing that Ty Simpson is the field in the NFL is split right down the middle between Ty Simpson and Fernando Mendoza. Midway through the season, yeah, I could understand that. I could completely understand that. If you had Ty Simpson at number 1 and Fernando Mendoza at 2 or vice versa, completely get it. Middle part of the season, early part of November, fine, I got you. But the games that we saw the back half of those last few games of the year, you look at the game against Auburn, you look at the game against Oklahoma, or the regular season game against Oklahoma. I don't think he was that bad against Oklahoma in the playoff. But you look at the game against Oklahoma in the regular season. You look at the Eastern Illinois game again. We look at the Indiana game in the Rose Bowl, Georgia in the SEC championship game. Games like that are where I now sit back and struggle that Ty Simpson's the best quarterback in this draft class. That's where I struggle. And again, this is a guy that had Ty Simpson at number 1 for, I would say, at least half, if not the majority, of this past season. I think Ty Simpson is a first-round draft pick. I don't want Ty Simpson to start right away. That scares the living shit out of me. Because, again, there's no good track record of quarterbacks with that little amount of starts instantly becoming good at the next level. It's very rare that happens. If it ever happens at all, it's very rare. So I hope if he does get drafted in the first round that he goes to a team where he can actually develop properly. And the Browns are desperate. They're a shithole of an organization ever since they came back in 1999. This is not the place where you look at and go like, oh, they're very good at developing young quarterbacks. It's one of the last places you think. You put them up there with the Jets as regards to teams that do not develop quarterbacks. Ironically, the two teams that are the most linked with Ty Simpson are the Jets and Browns, which scares the shit out of me for him. Both the teams behind them potentially taking quarterback and their need for a quarterback and their willingness to draft a quarterback, I could see them reaching on Ty Simpson with the 6th overall pick. You don't need to agree with me, and I'm not sitting here going like this is, again, I'm not pounding my fist on the table saying this is going to happen, but it could. It could. I think Ty Simpson makes a lot of NFL-level throws. I think he's a very good anticipatory thrower. I think his pocket awareness, pocket mobility, and pre-snap awareness is better than anybody that has had that little of starts in college. He's so much further along as a processor that I think you could justify it and feel fine. Again, if he works out and becomes your franchise guy, not one single person will care that he was taken 6th overall. If he stinks and is a bust at the next level, then people are going to care. And he's going to have a very short leash if this does happen. If you're a guy that your fan base does not want to draft, because if you scroll on Twitter for 5 minutes, if you search Ty Simpson Browns, there's not a lot of Browns fans on there that are like enthralled with the idea of drafting Ty Simpson, whether that be 6 or at 24. There's not a lot of people that are very excited about that. So if you're a guy that your fan base already doesn't really want, your leash is going to be insanely short. I mean, we saw that with Trubisky. He went to it was a Blackhawks or a Bulls game when he first got drafted, and he got booed at the game. It's like he didn't trade up to draft himself. The Bears did that. And to be fair, a lot of Bears fans at that point in time were also content because they had signed Mike Glennon. So I don't really think that at that point in time they could really take and go like boo anybody because they weren't. If you were to go back in that point in time, most people thought they were taking Jamal Adams. Not a lot of people thought, like, take Patrick Mahomes. No one thought they were taking Patrick Mahomes at that point in time. No one. If you watch the clip of Trubisky getting drafted and they cut to that group in Chicago, the dude sitting in the front says, "We have a quarterback." And it's Mike Glennon. So again, there's going to be like, oh, they should have taken Mahomes. They weren't going to take Mahomes. They were going to take Jamal Adams and they traded up to draft Trubisky. Because they signed Mike Glennon to a 2-year contract and everybody thought, oh, they got Mike Glennon from Tampa Bay, of all places. But regardless, I'm rooting for Ty Simpson. I hope it works out at the next level. I like the stuff that I saw this past year. And it's just a matter of where he ends up going, and I hope he works out for him. Number 7, the Cardinals. Trading back with the Commanders. Long-winded, but we finally got to the Cardinals. I have Spencer Fanu. And I know Francis Mauigoa from Miami is most people consider the number 1 guy for the right tackle position in this draft class. And I think that's fair. Absolute mauler at right tackle. Is a more natural right tackle. There's some people that suggest he could kick inside to guard, which I think is a possibility. Fanu is a guy that some people are saying he's already a guard or a center at the next level anyways. But the reason I have him going to the Cardinals and sticking at right tackle is because of his athleticism. He blew up the combine in regards to athleticism, in regards to tackles, and other offensive linemen in this draft class. His athleticism was off the freaking charts. And for a team like the Cardinals, who are going to run a lot of outside zone running schemes, I think drafting someone like Fanu fits schematically more than what Mauigoa is. And again, I think Mauigoa is better than Spencer Fanu. If I was drafting a right tackle, I would draft Mauigoa. That's how I'm sitting here right now. But in regards to what the Cardinals want to do, what I'm assuming the Cardinals want to do on offense, I think Fanu fits what LaFleur and co. are going to want to do. Because I think that athleticism will bode really, really well for the Cardinals. And Monty Osenfort, the general manager, he's a very big raw score guy. And for those of you who don't know what raw scores are, you see these after the combine pop up. It's your relative athletic score. I believe that's what it stands for. Regardless, if you're a 10 or basically a 9-something to 10, you're an insane athlete. You're the most insane athlete out of all the athletes in the combine. And Fanu's was I don't remember what Fanu's was. I want to say it was a 9.6. Like, Fanu's score was very high. And I think Monty Osenfort, liking that kind of stuff, could take him. And I do think this is also very important as well. I do think that Sonny Styles at number 3 is an option. Because not only did Sonny Styles post an insane raw score, he's also an Ohio State guy. And Monty Osenfort has drafted Ohio State guys with high picks. You look at Paris Johnson, you look at Marvin Harrison. Like, they got the connections there. And a lot of general managers like to go back to schools they're familiar with. So that could be an option. But I think schematically, and their biggest need is right tackle. I don't know if you could justify taking him at 1 at 3. Maybe you can. I don't know. But I think Fanu's athletic ceiling, the fact that I think he fits what the Cardinals want to do schematically in the run game, fits why I have him going to Arizona at number 7. And I would have had him going 3 either way. But regardless, I know it's probably some people are going to be like, oh, that's a reach. That's fine. His arm length was longer at his pro day, which I don't understand how that stuff works. But maybe they've just been pulling on his arm since the combine. But yeah, I think he's a very good player, very athletic player. I think the Cardinals could take him at 3 or at 7. But if you want to justify the draft position, trading back, taking him at 7, I think makes more sense for Arizona. The New Orleans Saints at 8. Cardinal Tate from Ohio State. They've made a lot of moves on the offensive side of the ball. They brought in David Edwards from Buffalo. They brought in Noah Fant from Cincinnati. We brought up Etienne before, Achane, sorry. Brought him in from Jacksonville this offseason. Like, they've made moves to improve the offensive side of the ball, to give Tyler Shuck people to build around on that offensive side of the ball. They're trying to improve. And Chris Olave is still there. Chris Olave is a very good player when he's playing, but the waiting injury is right around the corner every single time he steps onto the field. And he's got the blood clot in his leg, so he's still recovering from that. So I would imagine that receiver would be high on the board. I do think edge rusher is a possibility here, and linebacker as well. Demario Davis leaving this offseason, and the uncertain future about Cam Jordan. And Jordan's future anyways is in question just because he's older. So if you want a contingency plan in place there, you could take someone like Ruben Bain. I mean, Carl Granderson's fine. Chase Young is fine. But you don't have that elite guy coming off the edge. And whether you bring back Cam Jordan or not, I do think you're going to need to get a guy in there to eventually supplant him anyways. So maybe Ruben Bain's an option. Sonny Styles, again, could be an option. Maybe you look at Mansour Delane from LSU. That could be an option. Maybe Jermon McCoy, Caleb Downs. There's a lot of options here for the Saints. But I think Cardinal Tate is the guy that you look at right now and go, yep, that's the guy I think the Saints should draft. And a lot of it has to go down to the fact that he named Tyler Shuck as one of the quarterbacks he'd want to catch a ball from in the NFL, which is it felt like such a random thing. I don't remember the other two quarterbacks he said, but Tyler Shuck sitting there was like, oh, that's the polar bear in Arlington type thing. Or the picture of the military and the clowns right there. Tyler Shuck's not a clown. Tyler Shuck is awesome. Tyler Shuck had a great year last year. I was high on him going into the draft process. I like Tyler Shuck a lot. I'm just saying it's like that's out of place. Why are you mentioning Mahomes and Jane Daniels and then there's Tyler Shuck right there? That seems kind of out of place. Again, I'm not calling him a clown. I'm not doing that at all. It's just that's out of place. And if you're the Saints and you got a guy like Tyler Shuck and you've got receiver as one of your top needs going into the draft, why not take the best one available? I know there's going to be talks about like Mekhi Lemon here as well, and this is a really deep receiver class, so maybe you could justify not taking one here and taking Ruben Bain and all that stuff and moving on for a later spot. I don't know, but I think Carnell Tate makes a lot of sense for the Saints, opposite of Chris Olave. Two Ohio State guys on the outside, can't really go wrong there. And Carnell Tate, I know there's going to be a lot of concerns about the amount of pressure that Jeremiah Smith took off of him. I know there's going to be some question marks around that and people nervous about that because, man, he never was a number one guy in college. But the thing is, if you look at Ohio State, if you look at the lineage of wide receivers across the past 10 years at Ohio State, like I think that would be fair with every school out there except this one. Like Ohio State has had so many receivers come through at the same time and all be great at the next level. Like if you look at Ohio State, through like Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Terry McLaurin, Marvin Harrison Jr. still developing at this next level, but these are receivers that were just on the same team as the one. Emeka Egbuka, Jackson Smith and Jigba. These guys were all on the same team. And they're all some of the best receivers in the NFL. So I don't really have a concern with that. If this was another school, then yes, I would be nervous if there was a guy that was as good as Jeremiah Smith, opposite of the number one receiver in this year's draft class. If this was a completely different school. But the way Ohio State develops receivers and the way Ohio State receivers have been in the next level, I don't have as much of a concern of it. So Carnell Tate, I have him going number 8. He's a great deep threat, 17.5 yards per catch. I know he ran a slower 40, 4.53, but that's a slower 40 for you and I stand. Or that's a slower standard for the combine stuff. But he's faster than a 4.53 on the field, and that's what's most important here. So I have him going number 8. The Kansas City Chiefs, I have taken Ruben Bain. There's some people talking about them possibly going after Cam Jordan, but again, Cam Jordan's 36, 37 years old. He's not going to be your long-term answer at edge rusher. And Steve Spagnuolo and the Chiefs in general, Brett Veach, have tended to target defensive players earlier than not in the draft process. I do think Mansour Delane and Jermon McCoy are options here because they don't have any corners. Jalen Watson left in free agency. They trade Trent McDuffie to the Rams. Brian Cook, the safety, he signed with the Bengals, so maybe they go after Caleb Downs. That could be an option. But if you look at the Chiefs and Spagnuolo, they want to have those guys who set the edge. And Ruben Bain is an edge setter like none other in this draft class. I know he's got shorter arms, but the thing is as well, we knew about the short arms going in. So no one should be surprised that he came into the combine with short arms. We all knew that. That's not new information. It's like, oh my God, his arms are that short. No, we knew they were short. And I think I saw if he gets drafted in the first round, to be the shortest arms in NFL, the first round history or something like that. The thing is, again, Ruben Bain may have short arms. They might call him T-Rex arms. And I brought this up before. I saw it on Twitter a few months ago. And I thought it was hilarious. He might have T-Rex arms, but Ruben Bain is just a T-Rex. That's why it's fine. If Ruben Bain wasn't a T-Rex, then yeah, I'd be a little concerned about that. But Ruben Bain is just a difference maker. 6.3 pressures per game. 83 quarterback pressures throughout the course of the season this past year. 9.5 sacks, with 3 of those coming on the road against Texas A&M, who have one of the best offensive lines in college football this past season. He had 3 sacks against Texas A&M. He is an absolute mauler. He might not be the biggest dude. He's 6'2", came in 6'2", 263 pounds. But the dude is just a mauler. He's got an insane motor, and I think it would fit perfectly what Spags wants to do on that defensive side of the ball. There's going to be talks about them going offense here. Carnell Tate, one of the receivers, those could be options. But again, given the Chiefs' recent draft history, I know they drafted Xavier Worthy in the first round. But apart from him, they tend to target defensive guys earlier than not. And with 2 first-round picks now, I'm thinking they're going to use the first one on Ruben Bain. Number 10, Cincinnati Bengals, Caleb Downs. We talked about Brian Cook signing there this offseason. I don't think that's enough to keep them away from drafting Caleb Downs. And though the Bengals typically don't draft Ohio State guys or draft defensive backs insanely early in the draft, Caleb Downs is just too good of a player to pass up at 10. It's kind of the best player available approach. I think if Ruben Bain was available, they'd take Ruben Bain. If Caleb Downs and Ruben Bain are off the board, then you're possibly looking at trading back. I have a hard time. The corner, I know they're going to get linked with Mansour Delane. I know Jamal McCoy, Avion Terrell. I know all these guys are going to get linked to the Bengals. But I would see them trade back at that point. And then maybe take like Keldrick Falk or something. Like he fits what the Bengals want to do. Big dude on the defensive line. Versatile player. Really raw. Better against the run than the pass at this point in time. That's what the Bengals' MO is on the defensive line. And especially with Trey Hendrickson signing with the Baltimore Ravens this offseason, you need edge rushers. You need defensive line help. But again, if you're looking at who's all available, do any of the guys available, especially the edge rushers, compare to Caleb Downs as a prospect? No. If Caleb Downs is available and you're a team that needs defensive help in any sort of way, then you take him. Again, maybe the Chiefs take him at 9, but I think the Chiefs value defensive line more than secondary, especially early on in the draft. I think they'll go and get a guy later in the draft. They're going to draft a safety. They're going to draft a couple corners. Don't get me wrong, but I think early on, Ruben Bain, I have a hard time believing Ruben Bain will fall past the Chiefs. I know there's going to be talks about right tackle as well, but everything I've seen is that the Chiefs fans on Twitter and the Chiefs fans that I've talked to in person are pretty comfortable with Jalen Moore at right tackle. They're pretty comfortable with Jalen Moore at right tackle. So, if that winds up being the case, because they cut Juwan Taylor. I don't know if you guys saw that or not. I know it's I don't know what you want to call it. But Jalen Moore, Esapol, these are guys that I've seen a lot of people very content with. So that's why I feel like Ruben Bain would be the pick there over Maui Noah. And if Ruben Bain and Caleb Downs are available at 10 for the Cincinnati Bengals, then we're having an interesting conversation. Because I think a team like the Bengals would go after Ruben Bain. And then Caleb Downs, I don't know. Maybe you look at Dallas. Maybe you look at Miami, who just needs playmakers. And you look at Jeff Hafley, who's coming in, who's the defense coordinator with the Packers, likes himself some safeties. And they cut Minkah Fitzpatrick, who signed up with the Jets. So maybe there's an option there. But I think Caleb Downs is too good of a player to pass up here. I know there's going to be some concerns about his knee, which is why he ultimately fell to 10. But I have a hard time thinking he'd fall further past this spot. But again, if he does, I think Dallas at 12, I think Miami at 11, I think are very viable options there for him. I do think this is interesting as well, real quick. Like, we talk about, like, the physical traits of safeties and defensive players. Like, Ed Reed was not this physical specimen at the safety position. I'm not comparing Caleb Downs to Ed Reed by any stretch of the imagination, but just because he's not this physical specimen does not mean he's not an elite football player. Because I know there's a lot of people like, oh, what's his elite physical trait? He might not have one, but he's still a damn good football player and one of the top 5 players in the draft class, bar none. It doesn't matter who you ask. Caleb Downs is the top 5 player in this draft class. Number 11, Miami Dolphins, Francis Maui Noah. And I'm going to skip around. Now that we got past the top 10, I'm going to skip around a little bit because I don't want this thing to be 2 hours again. That was too long. We don't need to go over the whole mock draft. You can go in the description, click on the blog post down below. But we'll skip around here a little bit. I'll still mention them, but I'm not going to talk in-depthly because some of them I feel like are more not common sense, but like more obvious than others, I guess. But Maui Noah at number 11 of the Dolphins. We brought up Jeff Hafley. John Eric Sullivan is now in as the Packers general manager as well, or Dolphins general manager, both coming from the Packers. They signed Malik Willis this offseason, so they got a quarterback. Now it's about getting him help. And coming from the Packers, there's going to be a lot of people who go like, oh, they need to draft a wide receiver. And that's fair. They don't have anybody. They have nobody out wide at wide receiver. They just traded Jalen Waddle, the Denver Broncos. Tyreek Hill's not coming back. They don't have any weapons on the outside. But at the same time, their offensive line stinks. And if you're looking at people coming from the Green Bay Packers, and again, maybe they're different than the people they were working under in Green Bay. Maybe they're different. But just what we know about the Packers and how they address the draft, this early in the process at pick number 11, I have a hard time believing at this point that they draft a receiver. Do they need one? Yes. Mekhi Lemon, Jordan Tyson would be awesome here. Cardinal Tate would be the most ideal option here, but I have a hard time believing he'd be available. If he is, then we're having a different conversation possibly. But the Dolphins need help at tackle. They need help at guard. Austin Jackson, who they drafted in the first round back in 2020, is, I don't know, to be honest, I don't know how he's kind of stuck around this long at right tackle in Miami. He's not great. So if you draft Maui Noah, you either start him at guard and kick him out to tackle, or you kick Austin Jackson into the guard, and then you start Maui Noah at tackle. They need off-the-line help, and the Packers, when they take tackles, or when they're looking for guards, because you would say, for the needs for the Dolphins, you would go guards probably a bigger need than tackle. They tend to go after tackles and transition him inside to guard. That's what the Packers have done. Again, maybe Sullivan and Hafley are different than the people they've worked under. But I think just that history leads me to believe that Maui Noah, if he's available, would be a guy that they'd look at here for sure. Because you can talk about, you don't have any weapons, but you don't have any offensive linemen really either. Patrick Paul is fine at left tackle, but apart from that, you need help on the offensive line. They're talking about trading Devin Achane. I don't know what's going to happen there. I have no clue. But if Maui Noah is available, I would take him if I'm the Dolphins. And I wouldn't panic at a wide receiver at this point. I do think, again, Mekhi Lemon, Jordan Tyson are good options. Not fine, but they're good options. I just think the Packers' history, given the guys they have, and the lack of offensive linemen the Dolphins have, makes this the pick here at number 11. Cowboys have Mansour Delane. I think that's a pretty simple one. They need help at corner. He's the best corner in the draft by pretty much all accounts. Now, if Jermon McCoy wasn't hurt or coming off, if Jermon McCoy played a down last season, then maybe we're having a different conversation. But Mansour Delane, I think for what the Cowboys want to do on defense, and again, best corner available. If he's available, you take him there at 12 and don't think about it. Rams, I have Mekhi Lemon. Again, makes sense. They just need receiver help, especially with all the stuff coming up with Puka Nacua recently. I'm not going to really address that here, but the stuff going around with him is kind of makes receiver a little bit more a pressing need with his long-term future. So I'll have to wait and see on that one. And Devontae Adams getting older too. And you got Matthew Stafford coming back for basically a swan song season. They're gonna try everything to win a Super Bowl. Maybe you go after a tackle here. I've seen Maui Noah go here pretty often. But again, like I talked about with the Chiefs, I've seen a lot of their fans really content with Warren McClendon at right tackle. So maybe it's not as big of a need as what me and you think it could be. But that's an option for sure. But tackle and receiver seem the most likely options there. Baltimore Ravens at 14. Vega Ioane from Penn State, best guard in the draft. I think Spencer Fano, scheme-wise, again, with the athleticism, I think that would be a natural fit there. But Ioane is just a mauler at guard. Just an absolute mauler. He might not be like the most insane athlete out there, but they need help at center and guard. Yes, they brought in John Simpson this offseason from the New York Jets. But again, they need help at that other guard spot. They lost Tyler Linderbaum in free agency this offseason and signed the biggest contract in interior off the line history with the Las Vegas Raiders this offseason. They need help there. They got Jesse Minter coming in from the Chargers. He's a defensive-minded head coach with coming in from Harbaugh. He's going to want to improve the offensive line. They're going to want to run the ball, be physical. Maybe you go after another edge rusher here. I know the whole situation with Max Crosby was that is one of the dumbest situations I think I've ever seen in my life. I don't understand how that all went down, why it happened. Lord knows. Lord knows what to believe, but regardless, stupid situation. Maybe you still go after an edge rusher here. Maybe you still do that. But I just feel like Minter, with him coming from the Chargers, with Harbaugh, in the need for offensive lineman here, there's going to be talks about wide receiver, and they need wide receivers, but just given, again, who he comes from, I think makes this feel like it's an offensive line pick or they're improving the defensive side of the ball. In some capacity, edge rusher would be the ideal spot, and maybe they do draft a receiver. Depending on who's available, maybe they do draft a receiver. But I think Ioane feels an immediate need with the team, so I have him going 14. Buccaneers, I have Akeem Mesidor. He scares the crap out of me because he's older. He's going to be 26 years old by the time the draft rolls around. That's kind of wearisome. Or 25 years old by the time the draft rolls around. A couple weeks, actually. So that scares me a little bit. But for the here and now, there's some people out there that I've seen recently that say they might consider Akeem Mesidor better than Ruben Bain, who those two created one of the best, most dynamic edge rushing duos in all of college football this past season. 12.5 sacks and 4 forced fumbles for Mesidor at Miami. And if you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they don't really have a problem in recent history of drafting older prospects, and Mesidor is that. Again, 24 right now, turns 25 right before the draft. They just need help at the edge rusher spot. They need to improve and get more consistent at the edge rusher position. Like, if you look at their defense last year, not one player on their team registered more than 7 sacks. That was Yaya Diaby. He registered 7 himself. The next closest was nose tackle Vita Vea, who had 4.5. For Dodd Bulls, who wants a hyper defense that wants to get after the quarterback and make plays, they need more help at that edge rusher spot. Akeem Mesidor, I think, fills that need. I do think linebacker, I think Sonny Styles is the perfect pick for them, especially with Levante David retiring. Sonny Styles is the ideal target, but they're not going to get him. They're not going to get him. And I think this is too early for C.J. Allen from Georgia, so maybe you look a little bit later for there, but you need to get more consistent getting after the quarterback. And I think Mesidor, again, his age might be a problem, might be a little worrisome for some, but I don't think the Buccaneers will have a problem with that, and I think a team at 15 makes a lot of sense, especially with how powerfully he is coming off the edge. The Jets at 16, Jordan Tyson. There's a lot of things going around with Jordan Tyson around his injury history, and rightfully so. Dude can't stay healthy. It's been a problem ever since he was at Colorado, battling injuries all the damn time, niggling hamstring injuries. And we didn't even see him participate at Arizona State's pro day, so that kind of got some people concerned. So he could fall a little bit in the draft, but skill-wise, talent-wise, he is one of the best receivers in this draft class. It's not even a conversation. You might even have a conversation about him being the number 1 receiver in this draft class. If it wasn't for injuries, we might not be having a conversation about, oh, could he go farther than this? No, he shouldn't go much further than this. He could be a top 10 pick. He could be with the Dolphins at 11. He could be the first receiver taken. Like, if it weren't for all that stuff, and it's right to be concerned about that kind of stuff, because you don't want to waste a first-round draft pick on a guy that's never going to be on the freaking field. That's not very smart. That's not smart drafting. You want guy like the best ability is availability. And Jordan Tyson's never available. It doesn't matter how good he was at college or how good we think he can be. If he's not playing, then there's no reason to draft him. But if you believe in your guys and your staff, your medical staff and all that can get that stuff right, then why not take Jordan Tyson? And the Jets don't have a quarterback. I know they brought in Geno Smith this offseason, but he's not their long-term answer there. So a lot of people are linking them to Ty Simpson. I don't see the Jets doing that, but again, I think they're looking towards next year's draft class. I know we did this last year with but look towards next year's draft class. And look where we're at now. Like, Fernando Mendoza, you could have convinced yourself of being a top pick in the draft. You would have talked yourself into that pretty easily. Like, I remember Nate Tice, prior to the season starting, had Fernando Mendoza as his number 1 quarterback in the draft class. Like, it wasn't some insane thing to have Fernando Mendoza up there, even when he was at Cal. Like, if you watch the times he was at Cal, he made big-time plays at Cal. Obviously not as much as he did at Indiana. Obviously never got close to winning a national championship game because he was playing at Cal. That's one of the most blasé programs in all of college football. And going to Indiana, to do what he did at Indiana, that's what you like to see. I just don't think that it's weird to think about, like, based off what we had this past year, and then going into next year, and going, oh, a lot of the guys are guys that could have been available this year that we were high on that weren't good enough to get drafted with this spot. Like, the guys you look at, like Arch Manning, he started off rough. He got really good at the back half of the season. You could have had that conversation again. Arch Manning was very good that back half of the season for Texas. Very, very good. And you look at Dante Moore. Dante Moore could have been a top 5 pick in the draft with ease. He would have been with ease. Lenora Sellers was not consistent enough this past season at South Carolina. He was great in that game against Missouri. Great. But then the other games you looked at and like, this isn't great. And trying to do a little too much or trusting himself a little, like against Alabama. Why are you trying to run on 4th down? It was like 4th and 17 or something. Why are you trying to run? Just launch it down the field. Doesn't matter if it gets picked off. Your stats aren't great enough to worry about the stats anyways. Just launch it down the field. Talent-wise, I think Lenora Sellers is insane. But South Carolina, now, I do also have to say this. South Carolina did not have any offensive line help. By the time he got the ball from the center, there was a defensive lineman already on his back. Like, there's not a lot of times he could do a lot. So he's trying to do too much because he has to do too much for things to work out for him. So that's going to be something to look out for next year. But Jordan Tyson, if he's available, the Jets need wide receiver help opposite Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson led the team in receiving yards with 395 yards last year. And a lot of that had to do with the quarterback position, but you need receivers that can take pressure off of Garrett Wilson. And Jordan Tyson could do that. So he's the pick at 16. Lions have taken Monroe Freeling. He's a guy I've seen a lot go number 6. I like Monroe Freeling a lot. I think athletically his ceiling is very, very high. I think he might have the highest ceiling out of all the tackles in this draft, but 6 might be a little rich for my blood anyways. But it wouldn't shock me if he was at that spot. The Browns do need a left tackle, but I just think Freeling might be a little too rich at that number 6 spot. But 17 to the Lions, Taylor Decker getting released, requesting his released and getting released, I think that could boast well for them. The Vikings, Dylan Thieneman from Oregon, another guy who had a great combine. He just feels like a Viking. And maybe it was because Harrison Smith has been there for however many years, and they just need that white safety in the back half of the defense. Dylan Thieneman just feels like a Minnesota Viking. He just does. I know I had Emmanuel McNeil-Warren from Toledo going here last time, and he could still be the pick here, but Thieneman just feels like a Viking. He just feels like a Minnesota Viking. Avion Terrell, Jamal McCoy, they could be options here as well. Maybe you get a defensive tackle in here as well, but Thieneman, he's the guy. He kind of has to go to the Vikings. If he doesn't go to the Cowboys at 12 or the Jets at 16, he has to go. This is as low as he goes. He does not fall past this pick. I am very confident in saying that right now. The Panthers, I have them taking Kenyon Sadiq. Need more weapons for Bryce Young. You want to make sure Bryce Young's your guy. There's moments where Bryce Young looks like your guy, and there's other times he looks like, rookie year Bryce Young, or a year where we're benching him for Andy Dalton. Then we're getting back to those things. But then he gets really good. Really good. He gets good. And he has moments. And you just want to keep building around him. Tedoroa McMillan was an awesome pick last year. Rookie of the year, rightfully so. You need more production from the tight end. Tommy Trimble, Jatavian Sanders weren't great this past year. I think they combined 400 yards receiving last year. There's no production coming from that tight end spot. Maybe you go after Omar Cooper, Casey Concepcion, get some separators or difference makers on the outside, but Kenyon Sadiq's just a difference maker in his own right. I could see Tampa Bay taking him at 15. I could see the Ravens at 14. I could see the Rams at 13. Hell, I could maybe even see the Dolphins at 11. Like, I could see people, the Chiefs at 9 are the one that a lot of people are going to want to link them to. But Kenyon Sadiq is more than a tight end. Great deep threat, which is what the Panthers are looking for. They need separators. They need people to get down the field. Kenyon Sadiq is that. He might be a tight end, but that's what you need from the Panthers offense. Number 20, the Dallas Cowboys, Keldrick Falk. I've seen some people, Keldrick Falk's stock is all over the place. Like, some people have him near the top 10. Some people have him near the second round. Like, it's very, very chaotic when it comes to his draft. So I can understand why. I mean, he's very raw. He's 21 years old right now. He's going to 22 before the season starts. He's 6'6", 276 pounds. He's very raw as a passer. He only had 2 sacks this past season. He's a very good run defender, and he's versatile. So it's just a matter of if you think you can develop him. And if you're the Dallas Cowboys, who have a history of taking ceilings, like they like to look at those guys with ceilings, with high ceilings, and think they can develop them. You look at what they've done on the offensive line recently. That's what they want to do here. I know Tyler Booker wasn't really that. But you look at Tyler Smith as a prime example of that. Like, that's what they want to do. Tyler Guyton's another one. Again, very raw prospect when they brought them in, but they were able to develop them and get them into starters. Maybe they want to do that with this. Christian Parker is the defensive coordinator coming in. Cowboys just need help on defense. C.J. Allen, I think, was an option here. I had it as an option here as well. But again, it's just a little too rich for C.J. Allen at this point. Great player, but I don't know. I think he's a good player. Green dot guy. I think he's a green dot guy on the defensive side of the ball. Great leader. Everybody raves about his leadership, but a 6'1", 230-pound linebacker in the first round, I don't know if that's a top 20 pick anyways. I don't know if that's going to happen. And Keldrick Falk, I think ceiling's too high for the Cowboys to pass him at 20. I know they got in Rashawn Gary, but I don't think that's enough to solidify that they don't need to take on edge rusher at this point. So Keldrick Falk, I have him going to the Cowboys. So Andrew Delane and Keldrick Falk, I think, would be a very good first-round haul for the Cowboys. 21, the Steelers, Omar Cooper. His stock's on the rise. And I thought I was ahead of the curve when I released Mock Draft 1.0. When I had Omar Cooper going 26 to the Bills. I thought I was ahead of the curve. I didn't see, well, I was, because I didn't see anybody have him in the first round prior to that moment. And now I see mock drafts with him going all the way up to 16 with the Jets, 13 to the Rams. Like, I don't know where this all came from. Everybody just look at my mock draft and go like, oh, we got to start looking at this guy. Look at what Logan thinks this guy. This guy's pretty damn good. I don't think he's going to be available at the time the Bills pick. If he is, I would be very shocked. Because you look at teams like the Rams, the Ravens, the Jets, the Panthers, the Steelers. Even the Eagles, the Browns, like these are teams that could look at wide receivers at this spot. And I know the Steelers traded for Michael Pittman. I know they did. And there's going to be some talks about them needing off the lineman. Blake Miller from Clemson, I think, would make a lot of sense. Vega Ioane would be the perfect fit, but I have a hard time thinking he's going to be available, especially with Samelo going to the Cardinals. They got a hole at guard. There's not a lot of confidence in Broderick Jones. So there's some talks about potentially moving Fautanu to left tackle and moving and drafting someone like Blake Miller. So we'll have to wait and see. But Omar Cooper, he has a connection to Adam Henry, who's the receivers coach. Recruited him at Indiana. Was his receiver coach at Indiana in 2022. They don't really have a natural slot guy. No Roman Wilson's there, but he was up and down last year with his relationship with Aaron Rodgers. Calvin Austin's gone. He went to the New York Giants this offseason. So they need that. They have a hole there. Omar Cooper feels like a Pittsburgh Steeler kind of receiver. Just feels like that gritty wide receiver. Makes people miss in the open. Will run people over and also block. So you got DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman on either side, and then Omar Cooper in the slot. I think it's a very solid receiving core. Omar Cooper's a damn good football player. And I can see corner being an option here as well. But with Mike McCarthy being an offensive-minded head coach, I think receiver could be one of the top options. If Omar Cooper's available with that connection to Adam Henry, then you take him here at 21. Chargers, TJ Parker from Clemson. Guard, off the line. That's going to be the main cog for the Chargers here. But they also need help at edge rusher. Adafe Owe, we brought it before, signed with the Washington Commanders this offseason. They need help at edge rusher. Khalil Mack re-signed, but he's 100 years old. And he hasn't been that consistent the past couple seasons with the Chargers. I know he had 17 sacks a few years ago, but these past couple years hasn't been that great. They need more help at edge rusher. Tuli Tuipulotu is a good player, but you need someone to eventually replace Khalil Mack. I think TJ Parker is that guy. TJ Parker, once upon a time, was a top 10 pick. Not since the season ended, but once upon a time, he was considered to be a top 10 pick in the draft. And I think for the Chargers, who need those guys coming off the edge, I think he'd be a natural fit for what they want to do. 6'4", 263 pounds, versatility to line up both inside and outside. Not the most elite burst out there in the world, but he comes up with natural speed and power once he actually, gets going. I think he'd be a very natural fit for the Chargers. Get behind Khalil Mack, develop a little bit before taking over there. So I have him going number 22. The Eagles, I have Blake Miller. We talked about before with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was my pick here last time. They need right tackles. Lane Johnson's contemplating retirement every other year. He's called Lane Johnson light. Like Blake Miller put up a solid performance at the combine. 6'7", 317 pounds. 9.5 broad jump. 5.04 in the 40-yard dash, which is a very solid time for someone that's that big. So if he's available, I think the Eagles take him. Max Ionichor from Arizona State, I think is an option here as well. But Blake Miller, given the Eagles' history of wanting to have contingency plans in place, I'm going to have Blake Miller going here. 24, the Browns, I have Caden Proctor from Alabama. Ty Simpson's best friend, Caden Proctor, who, if you look at Andrew Berry, he likes himself some Alabama people. We talk about Monty Osenford with the Ohio State connections. Andrew Berry's kind of that way with Alabama. And they need a left tackle. They brought in a right tackle. They brought in Tyus Howard from Houston. They got Zion Johnson in. They got Elgin Jenkins in from the Packers to play center. So they got a need at guard. And they got a need at tackle, left tackle. And Caden Proctor, coincidentally, can fill both holes. I know he's just a monster individual. He's 6'7", 352 pounds. The main reason people talk about him kicking inside the guard is because of his weight. He's a monster individual. So there are going to be people talking about, hey, he needs to try and keep the weight off of the NFL. Look at Mekhi Becton. The same conversation was going on with Mekhi Becton when he got drafted by the Jets. Like, can he keep the weight off? And now he's a guard. He's not a tackle anymore. But the difference is, I do think Caden Proctor is a better athlete than Mekhi Becton when he was coming out of college. Like, Caden Proctor, at the time, I think he ran a 5.14 or something in the 40-yard dash, which is like, you wouldn't look at it as going like, oh, that's a fast time or anything, but he's 6'7", 352 pounds. Alabama would use him in the screen game this past season. He scored a freaking touchdown for Alabama this past year. In regards to a boomer bust player, Caden Proctor is kind of that prospect. Like, he's been a starter at left tackle for Alabama since he was a freshman. And I'm putting my biases aside as an Iowa fan with the whole stringing Iowa back and forth thing about, like, I'm leaving Alabama, I'm going to Iowa, I'm waving to the Carver Hawkeye people, we're at an Iowa basketball game, it's like I'm going back to Alabama. So there's some, like, little, I don't like you type stuff here, but I promise that's not affecting anything here because the Browns need a left tackle. You got Ty Simpson at number 6. Why not get someone he's familiar with on his blind side with the school that you're familiar with as well in Cleveland and take him at 24. I know there's going to be some Browns fans that wouldn't like this first round haul, but I do think Ty Simpson and Caden Proctor make a lot of sense and is very realistic for the Browns at this point in time. But I do think like Omar Cooper, Chris Brazzell, Casey Concepcion, all those receivers, they could be options here as well. Denzel Boston, all options. But I do think receiver and quarterback are the two needs they might address earlier than later in this spot. Could be wrong. And did I say receiver earlier? Quarterback and receiver. I meant quarterback and tackle. I don't know. But number 25, the Bears. Emmanuel McNeil Warren, safety from Toledo. They need help at safety. They lost 3 players in the secondary. They lost Jaquan Brisker, Kevin Byard, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson this past offseason free agency. They need help at safety. Emmanuel McNeil Warren is a heat-seeking missile at the safety position. He's a big dude as well, 6'3", 201 pounds. He would fit what Dennis Allen wants to do on defense, especially in the secondary. They brought in Cam Lewis. They brought in Kobe Bryant. I'm fine with Kobe Bryant. Cam Lewis is not a starting safety. He's not. He was on the Bills for however many years. I know he's not a starting safety. He's a good player to bring in off the bench as a versatile option in the secondary, but he's not a starter at any position. He's not a corner. He's not a nickel. He's not a safety. He's just a defensive back that you can kind of plug in anywhere. Those guys aren't typically starters. And he's only coming in, he's either a 1 or 2 year deal, I can't remember. But I don't think you would look at that spot for the Bears and go like, I'm comfortable with Cam Lewis starting. Again, I have no issue with Cam Lewis. Barring him getting the one-handed catch, the Justin Jefferson one-handed catch, that was Cam Lewis and coverage in that play. But apart from that, I have no problems with Cam Lewis. He's a good special teams guy as well. Like, he's a good player to have on your roster. He's just not a guy you go to and say, yes, you're our starting safety. Mostly because I think his best spot's nickel. So that's a whole other conversation. So if you can, and I don't know, edge rusher, defensive tackle are going to be options here, but you need to get a safety in there. And I think Emmanuel McNeil Warren is the best option available for the Bears. He might not even be available here. I think it's a natural fit for the Chicago Bears at 25. The Bills, 26. R. Mason Thomas from Oklahoma. I haven't seen a lot of people recently have R. Mason Thomas in the first round, but given the Bills' comments at the Combine, it kind of feels like, and I get it, could be completely wrong, could be overlooking it and everything, but given the comments made about wide receivers in the past, and given what the comments about wide receiver were at the Combine, maybe it's a bait and switch thing. We're like, oh, we're sucking you in here. But nope, actually, boom, we're going to draft a wide receiver. It just doesn't feel like the Bills are looking at a wide receiver in the first round, especially after trading for DJ Moore. Which, at the time, I was kind of like, but the more and more that sat on it, I was like, you know what, I really like this move. And when I say it wasn't like, oh, I don't want DJ Moore. It was like, it didn't excite me like I wanted it to. But the more I did sit on it, you're like, okay, I like it. I like the move. And I like what the Bills have done with the moves that they've made this offseason. I think Bradley Chubb was a good move. Maybe you overpaid for him slightly, but I do like the move for him overall, which ironically, he was the guy the Broncos took instead of trading up the Bills so the Bills could draft Josh Allen. Because if you remember back in that draft, 2018, the Bills traded up with the Buccaneers for 7 instead of 5. The Bills and Broncos had a plan in place to trade the Bills' two first-round picks to the Broncos for the 5th overall pick. Because the Broncos thought Bradley Chubb was going number 4 to the Browns. Browns took Denzel Ward. So then Bradley Chubb was available, so the Broncos axed that off. So I see all these videos about John, man, we should draft Josh Allen. You were never drafting Josh Allen. You were drafting Bradley Chubb, or you were trading with the Bills so the Bills could draft Josh Allen. There was no conversation about the Broncos drafting Josh Allen until after Josh Allen got good. Because if you were going to draft Josh Allen, why'd you have a trade in place with the Bills so they could trade up to draft that guy? And then when Josh Allen was still available, you took an edge rusher, you crossed off the trade with the Bills, and then took an edge rusher instead. That tells me you weren't ever going to draft Josh Allen. Because he's good now, you're like, oh, we were going to do that. It's like Sean Payton talking about he was going to draft Patrick Mahomes at 11. No, you weren't. No, you freaking weren't. Everybody and their mom said the Saints are going to draft a cornerback, and they drafted Marshawn Lattimore. No one said the Saints are going to draft Patrick Mahomes. Because if you're going to do that, why not the next year did you draft Lamar Jackson? You traded up to draft Marcus Davenport. Why weren't you going to draft Lamar Jackson there? You traded up to draft Marcus Davenport. You were not going to draft Patrick Mahomes the year before. That's why I love how this stuff, like revisionist history type things. That was never going to happen. Because again, if the Broncos, if you were going to draft Josh Allen, why were you going to trade with the Bills? And then ultimately, why'd you draft Bradley Chubb? Your options were trade back or draft Bradley Chubb. Not that those are your only options. Because I hate to break it to you, you weren't going to draft Josh Allen if you traded back. You weren't going to do that because the Bills were taking him regardless. And it actually worked out well because the Bills got to keep their second first-round pick and trade up to 7, got Josh Allen and Tremaine Edmonds. So it worked out. I know Tremaine Edmonds is not in Buffalo anymore, but he was a solid player for the Bills when he was there. Regardless of the point, I do like the Bradley Chubb move, but the Bills still need more edge rushing help. I look back to that Denver Broncos game, speaking of, and the biggest issue is that they provided no pressure to Bo Nix. They provided no pressure on him. 0 sacks in this game. 0. In the AFC Championship divisional round game. 0 sacks. He had time to do whatever the hell he wanted. And with Jim Leonard coming in, the Bills are going to be, he said the Bills are going to be more aggressive, just not reckless. Not reckless, just more aggressive on the defensive side of the ball. They need more help at the edge rusher spot. I know there's going to be talks about linebacker because Dorian Williams right now, the linebacker tandem is Dorian Williams and Terrell Bernard. The Bills have to get a linebacker in there. CJ Allen, again, we talk about the next best linebacker. I feel like if the Bills were going to draft a linebacker, Jake Goldie from Cincinnati is a guy that I think they would look at. Not at this spot, but I think that's the guy they would look at. I do think there's a very solid chance that the Bills trade out of the first round. I'm not confident the Bills pick here, but they trade out of the first round. Defensive tackle is also an option here. There was some talk about safety. I think there could still be an option there, but with C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Geno Stone coming in, maybe you look at that a little bit later. I think they will draft a safety, just probably not in the first round. I think they will draft a receiver, just probably not in the first round. So I'm intrigued to see what the Bills do, but R. Mason Thomas, we talk about connections. Jay Valai, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. He was brought in from Oklahoma this offseason. He was the defensive coordinator at Oklahoma. R. Mason Thomas, for those of you who don't know, played at Oklahoma. And he might not be like the biggest physical specimen out there. He's 6'2", 241 pounds. He explodes out of the blocks, though. Covers a lot of ground with the first few steps. And he makes plays in both the run and pass game, despite not being the naturally biggest dude out there. He's got a good motor. He's got very heavy hands in the backfield as well. 6.5 sacks this past season with 2 forced fumbles. Only played in a few games this past season. Missed a good amount of time due to injury last year. But 6.5 sacks and 2 forced fumbles. He's not getting talked about right now. Earlier this offseason, he was getting talked about as a first-round draft pick. That's kind of died down a little bit. But I think the Bills, with that connection and the fact they still need help at edge rusher, I feel like makes a lot of sense. But again, I think there's a chance they trade out of this spot in general. Trade out of the first round completely or trade back just in the first round. I don't know. But I feel like a trade down is very likely at this point in time, depending on who's all available. But I do like the idea of R. Mason Thomas joining the Bills at 26 or just in general, especially with that connection there. But Cassius Howell from Texas A&M. I think Malachi Lawrence from UCF is a guy who's building up a lot of steam as we're getting closer and closer to the draft. So those are 2 other options there, but I'm going to go with R. Mason Thomas. The 49ers and Texans, I have them both taken offensive linemen. They need offensive line help. Caleb Lomu, I have him going to the 49ers, and Max Ionichor, I have going to the Texans. The 49ers is more of a situation where Trent Williams is getting old, and we don't know what his immediate future is. So they just need a contingency plan in place to start. Caleb Lomu has also been talked about kicking inside potentially. Not a lot, but there has been talks about that possibly happening. But kicking over, eventually replacing Trent Williams, I think would be a very good option for them long-term. Receiver could be an option. I know they got Mike Evans, they brought in Christian Kirk, but receiver I think should still be an option there as well. But as for the Texans, they trade Titus Howard to Cleveland Browns. They have a hole at right tackle. Max Ionichor is a natural right tackle. Very raw prospect. He's only been playing football since junior college, so there's still room to grow. And I do think there's a chance that the Texans go after a defensive tackle here. But I do think they need to get the best out of C.J. Stroud again. He was bad in the back half of the season. People are looking at C.J. Stroud a whole lot differently than they were his rookie year. And a lot of that goes down to how bad the Texans have been on the offensive line. They tried to rip it all down and build it up last year. It didn't work. So you need to get back to that and continue to build on there. They did bring in Wyatt Teller from Cleveland, which I think is a good move, but you still need to improve. And Max Ionichor's the best right tackle available, so you take him at 28. 29, the Chiefs, Jermon McCoy. There's no reason that Jermon McCoy should be available right here, given his natural talent. But he hasn't played football since 2024. Tore his ACL in offseason training in January 25. Did not play a single down last year. Did not participate at the Combine. There's a question mark around him participating at his pro day. So I could see a reality where he slips a little bit way farther than what his talent suggests. If he's not hurt or coming off an injury, or if he played down last year, he would be a top 10 pick in the draft. He would be in the conversation of being picked at number 9. Depending on who's all available, he could still be the pick at number 9. There's a connection to Patrick Mahomes. He went to the same high school as Patrick Mahomes. So there's a connection already there. So I do think if he was available at 9, or if the Chiefs didn't have their top defensive lineman prospects available, they could take him at 9. But I think McCoy, who is elite when he's playing, I think the injuries, the lack of participating in the offseason stuff, and I guess there's a lot of stuff surrounding his agent about people being annoyed with his agent, I think it all mix around and go like, hey, you know what? We might not take him earlier than what his talent suggests. He's a damn good football player. Damn good football player. And I do also think it's important to know how many teams prior to this spot have corner as one of their top needs. Like you look at the Rams, I know they signed Jalen Watson and they got Trent McDuffie in there, but maybe they go after another corner at 13. The Dolphins could look at a corner at 11. The Bengals could look at a corner at 10. Then you look at the Jets, they could potentially draft a corner. The Vikings could potentially draft a corner. You got the Cowboys again at 20. The Steelers could draft one. Like there's teams that could draft a corner, but how many of those teams would corner rank within their top 3 needs on their team? Not a lot. So I think there's a chance he could fall just because of that anyways, with the injury in place. And the Chiefs, this would be a very Chiefs thing, having one of the best players overall in their respective position and overall in the draft fall to them at 29. They might need to trade up to get him, but if he's available, they're going to snatch him up and take him at 29 and even think twice. Ruben Bain and Jermon McCoy for the Chiefs would be freaking stupid. But that's the reality in which we live in right now. 30, the Miami Dolphins. I have taken Casey Concepcion from Texas A&M. I know I brought the thing up with the Packers before, but there comes a point as well where if you're looking at what Malik Willis does best, that's throw the deep ball. Malik Willis is a very strong arm. He throws a very good deep ball. Casey Concepcion is the best separator in this draft class. You're looking at, like, for deep threats, you're looking at Cardinal Tate, and then you're looking at Casey Concepcion, and I think that's what the Dolphins will want. I do think there's a very good chance that Malachi Lawrence goes off the board here, the edge rusher from UCF, because they need help in that department as well. And they, again, Packers guys, like high ceiling guys, that's Malachi Lawrence. So you look at him, maybe they take him at 30. But Casey Concepcion's an absolute burner. You look at last year drafting Matthew Golden, similar-ish mold to that of Concepcion. And there's going to be some question marks around his knee. There's some flare-ups around his knee right now. So maybe you see him fall out of the first round. But in regards to a separator and a difference maker with that juice in the offense, I think Casey Concepcion is that. I would love him in Buffalo. I would absolutely love him in Buffalo. But if the Bills don't take him, I could see the Dolphins definitely snatching him up at 30 to give Malik Willis an option to throw to on the outside. I think a lot of what the Dolphins are going to do is built around getting the best out of Malik Willis, or trying to get the best out of Malik Willis, because it's not looking great right now. So you get Casey Concepcion there and move from there. But number 31, I have the Patriots, Malachi Lawrence. He could go to the Dolphins at 30. He could go to the Chargers at 22. He could go to the Bills at 26. He could go a lot of different places. 49ers at 27 even. They go a lot of different places. But Malachi Lawrence is a guy that's been rising up draft boards ever since the Combine. I've seen people talk about him being a top 25 draft pick. And maybe that does wind up happening, but comparatively to the other edge rushers that I've had so far, the only one I would really have a conversation about him being better than is R. Mason Thomas. You look at TJ Parker at 22. Like, I had an idea of having Malachi Lawrence going to the Chargers at 22, but I don't think he's a better player right now than TJ Parker. And maybe with Khalil Mack still being there, maybe they could afford to just draft Malachi Lawrence and move on from there and have him sit behind Khalil Mack for a little bit before taking Foley over. But a 4.52 and the 40-yard dash, had a 1.59 10-yard split, 40-inch vertical, 10-10 broad jump. Super athlete. 6'4", 253 pounds. Patriots need edge rushing help. I know they need tackle help as well, but all the best tackles are already off the board. We have 7 tackles going the first round. The Patriots need edge rushing help. Like, if you listen to what Mike Vrabel talked about in the Super Bowl, what was the biggest issue with them on defense? They were not able to set the edge. They were not able to control the edge. Mike Vrabel says that constantly. And you look at what Kenneth Walker was able to do, bouncing it. A lot of that had to do with the lack of edge rushers that they had, the lack of talent they had at the edge rusher spot. Clavon Chaisson, again, we talked about before, going to the Washington Commanders, they have a hole there. So you get in a guy like Malachi Lawrence who's got a very high ceiling, I think it'd be a very natural selection for the New England Patriots at 31. And then 32, the Seattle Seahawks, Avion Terrell, who I had going here last time. He's a very aggressive corner. I think that's what Mike McDonald will really want. Tariq Woolen went to the Philadelphia Eagles this offseason. They did bring back Josh Jobe, but getting in someone like Avion Terrell, an aggressive corner, I think Colton Hood would also make a lot of sense from Tennessee. D'Angelo Pons, I think would make a lot of sense for the Chiefs at 29 too. But I think Avion Terrell, if he's available, because I think there's a very good chance he go a lot higher than this, he would be the pick here. Jadarian Price from Notre Dame, the running back, I think it makes a lot of sense as well. The Seahawks with John Schneider have sometimes overdrafted players in the past, and Jadarian Price could be one of those situations there, but Avion Terrell is too good to pass up here at 32, and that is Mock Draft 2.0, ladies and gentlemen. Mock Draft 2.0 is done. In the draft, we had 2 quarterbacks, 1 running back, 5 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 7 tackles, 1 interior offensive lineman, no defensive tackles in this first round. None. I had none of them. And I think that's very hard. It was very hard for me to stomach doing that. But like I've talked about before, there's 5 guys, maybe even 6 defensive tackles that I think are all right next to each other. And I don't know if these teams are going to be able to separate them. If I had to guess which one's the most likely to get drafted in the first round off right now, I would guess Caden McDonald with his age profile. That's my guess at this point in time with his age. But I think Christian Miller from Georgia has been building up steam as of late as well. But regardless, 8 edge rushers, if you're including Arvell Reese, 2 linebackers, if you're including Arvell Reese, 3 corners, and 3 safeties. And those who just missed out, Jadarian Price, Chris Bell, Denzel Boston, Chris Brazell, Chase Basantis, Emmanuel Pregnon from Oregon, Caleb Banks, Lee Hunter, Caden McDonald, Christian Miller, and Peter Woods. Those are all defensive tackle guys. Cassius Howell, Zion Young. He was a guy I thought about with the Patriots quite a bit and the Bears. Then C.J. Allen, Jake Golday from Cincinnati, Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech, Colton Hood, Chris Johnson, and D'Angelo Pons. Those are all my guys that I have on the outside looking into the first round. But hey, that's Mock Draft 2.0 for you, baby. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did not, I sincerely apologize. Please understand where I'm coming from with all these picks, and don't get mad at me for having a player go to which spot. Just understand where I'm coming from, and I'm not dying on any of these hills right now. It's not close enough to the draft to do that. But we are less than a month away, which is crazy to think about. But I do hope you enjoyed. If you did not, I sincerely apologize. Try to be better next time. Make sure, again, to give the video a thumbs up. If you enjoyed it, make sure to check out the blog post down in the description below. Make sure to also check out all the different links to social media as well. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Make sure to check out all of those down in the description below. But make sure, most importantly, again, check out the blog post on the LoganBlackmanShow.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Again, if you did not, I sincerely apologize. Try to be better next time. And we'll have some United States men's national team stuff coming out for you soon. World Cup's coming up here, so that's exciting. So we'll have all that stuff for you and more. And yeah, I'm Logan Blackman, the self-proclaimed draft quote-unquote expert, and I will see you guys later. Peace.